Today on Locked On Rockies, we play a classic game of who needs this series more, the Colorado Rockies or the Pittsburgh Pirates.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans and Pirates fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies and Locked On Pirates podcast. I am Paul Holden, your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, joined by the one, the only Ethan Smith of the Locked On Pirates podcast. I had Javi on from Locked On Padres, and I have had to train my brain like 3 times to not say Padres and go Pirates, because that's who they're talking, the yellow team that starts with the P that the Rockies are playing in this upcoming series. We're going to dive into the series and more. Basically, two teams that are in two different spots and need the series win in two different ways, but two teams that are also very similar in a lot of ways, just in terms of history as well. Before we dive into everything today, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors, from brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Ethan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right, man. Baseball's in full swing. We're a month in already. Pretty quick month, I would add, Paul. It's been a lot to talk about already, too. I mean, for the Pirates, it's been pretty much 2 different seasons to talk about, and we're only 30-some games in.
It's been a long month in terms of baseball if you're a Rockies fan, as history-making team. 31 straight games the Colorado Rockies have trailed. That is a new Major League Baseball record, surpassing, I think it was the 1910 St. Louis Bears or something like that. I don't know what. It doesn't matter. It's the Rockies title to hold, and they held it all the way through their series against Miami, in which they were swept. Ethan, I think this sets the stage for a situation in which the Rockies need to, they need a series win. They don't have one. They need back-to-back wins. They haven't won back-to-back games since the September of last year. They don't have a series win on the year. The list goes on. And I mentioned, of course, the history with the trailing in games, but the Pirates are looking to salvage things as well. It at the bottom of the standings, a rough go of it. A sweep by the A's at the most recent series, if I'm reading the schedule right here.
Yes, and also just not a great West Coast series or West Coast trip at all. Lost 2 of 3 to the San Francisco Giants. And you mentioned not winning a series, Paul. Let's just say in the month of April, I visited Pittsburgh to be there for opening day against the Baltimore Orioles on April 5th. And that series was from April 5th to April 7th. I have since moved up to PA. And since I have moved to Pennsylvania, and since that time, the Pirates have not won a series either. So you're looking at 2 teams that have not won a series in quite a long time. The Pirates, of course, being April 5th through April 7th against that strong Orioles team. And the Rockies, again, you mentioning that they've just been looking for one period. And it's been a while for both of these teams, and very different expectations, I would say, for these teams. But as far as the next 3 games go over the weekend, you look at it that way and you say, well, one of them has to win the series. It's an odd number series. It would be really funny if it was a 4-game set. They found a way to split, but it's a 3-game series. I mean, one of them has to win, and one of them has to do something productive.
And, the Rockies were saying that going into their series against Miami, and then they open up, they get the first inning of the first game on the road in a place that's notoriously tough for them. They put up a 5 spot, goose eggs along the way, and struggles after that. The Rockies are really struggling with, honestly, everything right now, Ethan. The offense especially is bad. They continue to strike out at a crazy rate, at least 16 strikeouts in their finale against Miami. What's going wrong for the Pirates right now? What has led to the struggles? Is it unlucky? Is it just baseball type of stuff? Or is there kind of some stuff that you were worried about going into the season that's starting to unravel here at the beginning of the season?
It's actually, Paul, been really funny because a lot of the issues that the Pirates are dealing with right now are issues that are the complete reverse of what we expected to be issues. We expected that the starting pitching staff was going to be a problem. We expected that the offense was going to be very good and very tight knit, and it was going to put up runs, and it had a ton of power potential. We thought the bullpen would be a great group. It has been. That's been the one consistent thing. Starting pitching's been very good. They're getting quality starts usually day in and day out. The only problem is the Pirates have only put up 4 runs or more since April 14th 3 times. That's 2.5 weeks of just averaging less than 3 runs per game. I mean, it's getting to a point where with runners in scoring position at the beginning of the season, Paul, they were one of the best teams in baseball, average-wise, with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. And now it's just they're finding more ways to not score runs than they are to score runs. And I mean, you just look overall at the series that you mentioned against the A's. They had no runs on Wednesday, 2 runs on Tuesday, and 1 run on Monday. That's it. And then you go back even to the Giants series, 2 runs on Sunday, 4 on Saturday, and 0 on Friday. The run production is just not there right now, especially when you expect it. A lot of the pitchers they face too, Paul, and much like what I think we'll see in this series, are not pitchers that you should be struggling against. Not saying that these are guys, like they're still major league pitchers, don't get me wrong, but these are guys that offenses, especially an offense that the Pirates have, that does have talent on it, should be taking advantage of, not getting shut out by guys like Ross Stripling. And I know you're very familiar with Ross Stripling from his time in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I think that's I think the big storyline here. If you're the Pirates, I mean, I would say the A's, it's a little bit easier of a pill to swallow because you can sit there and say the A's are a better team and they are more of a surprise. Their record isn't great, but the A's are a better baseball team and are playing good ball right now. So that's something. But if you're Pirates fans and if the Rockies come into Pittsburgh, so the Rockies playing on the road, a notoriously difficult thing for them to do, and they win this series with their pitchers that, you know, the one thing that is a note when you're looking at the good pitchers of the Rockies, Cal Quantrill has an argument to be the Rockies' best pitcher this season. Ryan Feltner, I don't think he'll pitch game 3, I think, in this series. So you are going to see 2 Rockies pitchers that have been good. Austin Gomber is also going to see the mound. He's been good, but we've seen kind of the hot and coldness of Austin Gomber a lot throughout his time in Colorado. So I kind of hesitate there. So if you're Pirates fans and this Rockies team is able to come in and dominate your offense on the on the pitching side, that's got to be something that's got to be big warning signs and something you'd got to be frustrated by, and something really you can't afford if you're Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and it's one of those series as well that's almost perfect in a way, Paul, for the Pirates, a team, again, that's been struggling quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. And for the Rockies, too, I mean, I hate to say it about my own team, but if your pitchers are looking back to get on track with the way the offense currently looks right now, Pirates are the perfect team to play right now because they're just not putting up runs. They're not consistent offensively whatsoever. And even when they are, it's usually the occasional solo shot or the occasional RBI double that you get. And that's usually it right now. So for the Rockies, I mean, on both sides, it offers optimism to say, okay, this can get us back on track. I just think it really depends on what team takes advantage of that. And I mean, truthfully, I don't know if the Pirates can right now. And it's sad to say, because I wouldn't have been saying it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and we haven't been able to say it all season as watching the Rockies. I mean, this team has to play a complete 9-inning ball game. That 5-inning run or lead that they've had in the first against the Marlins, it's blown in the 9th inning. They blow a 5-run lead in the 9th and lose in extras. I mean, the Rockies aren't doing the fundamentals right. In the last series, the Rockies struck out 37 times against Miami in a 3-game set. That's 37 strikeouts in 3 games. They have the second most strikeouts in the league at 314. And this was after the focus was to not strike out as much. They have younger guys up there, but man, the Rockies have often just looked outmatched, and their schedule has been mostly playoff teams up until the series against Miami and the series against Pittsburgh. This is the first time now the Rockies are playing teams that weren't in the playoffs last year or considered to be playoff teams this year. The Astros are kind of, the weird exception there. They're still the Astros and handled the Rockies, but now you're on a 5-game skid. If you're the Rockies now, you got to do something different. This team is desperate for a winning series and a series where they play good baseball. I don't want to see a win for the Rockies where they scrape by on a missed throw or on an error or something like that. They need to go out and show us in this series to go out and beat a struggling team. And I think that if you're the Pirates, you're thinking the exact same thing. You can't afford a series loss, let alone a sweep to a team that you think that you got to beat, because when you do that classic good team evaluation, good teams beat bad teams. So you got to handle this situation. And as the Rockies, you got to get scrappy and you got to generate a win, because, man, they are looking lifeless out there. Ethan, I got an interesting question that I want you to think about here over the break. Two teams with front offices that are highly criticized and have a lot of things, honestly, that deserve to be criticized about them. So I want to know, which front office are you taking? The Rockies or the Pirates? I want you to think about that here as we head into our break. We're going to talk about that coming up here in segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies and Locked On Pirates. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for a winning championship is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into Locked On Rockies and Locked On Pirates. Paul Holden here from Locked On Rockies, hanging out here with Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates, rocking the wonderful floral fun Pirates shirt. Was that a giveaway, or is that a purchase you made on your own?
Oh, it was a giveaway.
It's a
it
wonderful
was a giveaway a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think so.
A wonderful giveaway there. You got to love a good ballpark promo here, Ethan. And before we were breaking down two teams really desperate to make something happen, and hopefully it's just good baseball this series. The Rockies didn't play particularly well against the Marlins as well. I would just like to see some clean baseball. And even if the losses end up happening for the Rockies, at least, you hate to justify it with the quality loss moniker, but it does help when it's a good, hard-fought ball game versus something that is a little ugly to watch. Ethan, I asked you before the break, which front office are you taking, the Rockies front office or the Pirates front office? And give people here on the Rocky side maybe a little insight into the frustrations of being a Pirates fan when it comes to their front office.
Well, obviously you start off with the ownership group, but the ownership group over the last couple of years has spread the cash a little bit more. They spread it around with Mitch Keller, Brian Reynolds, and Ke'Bryan Hayes, something that we're not accustomed to, especially me being a younger Pirates fan. I'm not accustomed to seeing our guys get extended all that much. We've seen 3 of those now. Then you look at what Ben Cherington, the general manager, has built already, and you look at what you have at the MLB level. You have Ke'Bryan Hayes, who he did not draft, but has helped develop. You look at Brian Reynolds and Mitch Keller, again, who he helped extend, which I'm sure he was big in those talks. But then you start looking for the guys that he was a big part in acquiring, like a Henry Davis, who has had his struggles, and I would expect that he'll probably go to AAA here pretty soon once Yasmani Grandal is ready, just because he needs a change of scenery, and I think he needs to prove to himself that he can hit the ball again. Jack Sawinski is another guy like that too, where I want him to play every day, because if you're just going to tinker with the guy and not play him all the time, why is he up here? That's the biggest question. Edward Olivares from the Kansas City Royals trade that they made in the offseason has been quite the acquisition. I see you have Connor Joe update on there, so I'll save some of it for later, but Connor Joe has been quite the acquisition for this team since coming back to the team last year. He was a big part in bringing back Andrew McCutchen. But I still think a lot of it with Cherington is still going to be, how does Paul Skeens look? Jared Jones obviously has been a very strong pitcher on this roster. You look at the multitude of pitchers that they're going to have coming up over the next 2 or 3 years. And then the position players, Termar Johnson, those guys, Nick Gonzalez, even Leover Piguero. You look at these guys and you say, okay, something's here Are they all going to be what we've been sold that they're going to be, though? So I would still probably take the Pirates front office just because I do think Cherington has made some pretty good decisions. They just need time to figure out themselves. And that's just how I would feel about it. And from Rockies fans' perspective, I mean, it's hard to not pick a front office that just took Paul Skeens because, I mean, yeah, he's Paul Skeens and you take him number 1 overall.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because there's going into this season, I didn't hate the fact that the Rockies weren't active this offseason because I wasn't expecting the Rockies to be good this year. I mean, but I thought they were going to be better than what we've seen. I believe in the talent on the field, but my biggest concerns have been with this team. I've been preaching this a lot this week. The team looks underprepared. This team does not believe in analytics the other way. I often bring up quotes from Dick Monfort from this interview he gave up. I like to read it directly, but he was basically saying that when they brought in people from the outside for interviews, they either brought up ideas that they've already tried or ideas that weren't going to work. And I'm sitting there saying, like, how are you confident that you know what works? Because you've lucked into one World Series appearance. And the one time it actually looked like the Rockies were building something, the ego of your GM and the ego of your superstar player completely collided with each other, which resulted in a trade that has not paid out for the Colorado Rockies when you're talking about value and has led to an incredible dip in that, mixed with other moves that, I mean, Chris Bryant is on the IL. Again, and he was on the IL before the first month of the season. Why? Because he played a position that the Rockies said he wasn't going to play, but instead the Rockies played him in right field. And what does he do? He tweaks his back. Instead of having him play first base where they were saying he was going to play, and not using Charlie Blackmon, who you brought, and the multitude of young guys that you have that play in the outfield. So it's just time and time. I have no confidence that the Rockies are able to get the most out of their players. I have no confidence that when they get to the Rockies, that they are in a position, that they are being put in the best position to win, because I don't think this front office buys in enough to the modern game of baseball. They swing and miss at a crazy rate. They're trotting out the same types of pitchers, trying the same, instead of a rotation with a mixed philosophy, it's an entire rotation built of guys that are weak contact, low strikeout guys, which great if it works, but they also are susceptible to getting rocked. Mind you, This is a team that lost 16-1 on opening day when Kyle Freeland, who's been one of the better pitchers in Rockies history, and his issues were on full display before he goes to the IL with an elbow issue. So I just don't think that, outside of the A's and the White Sox, I don't think that there's a front office I trust less than the Colorado Rockies right now. And that's from the top down. I think this team is desperate for a change. This team is desperate for an outside perspective. This team is desperate for something new, but Dick Monfort values his loyalty so much, and he has his crew. I mean, he has got a loyal gang of people. The GM that he hires as Jeff Bridich leaves in the organization for years. And he's made some, they were sellers last year at the deadline, something they've never done, which was great.
Yeah.
And
I remember 2022 with you, Paul, trust me.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Where the Rockies don't do anything and let, they get the one pick for Trevor Story instead of trying to get a package, and they don't move John Gray because they think they can give him the offseason, and then they completely fumble that. Boy, would they love to have John Gray in the rotation right now. So it's just, the Rockies were hard to trust. Then they built up my trust in the back-to-back playoff years, because it's like, hey, look, I mean, remind you, it's a team that had LeMahieu, Story, and Arenado in the infield with a rotation that was good. I mean, Freeland, Marquez, Gray, Senza, all playing well, and an all-star in Charlie Blackmon in the outfield as well. So this team had something going, but look where we're at. And if you're gonna not, and they avoid the rebuild stuff and the contracts that they've signed, they're just head scratchers. And I just don't think I can sit here and say that I'm fully confident that this team is and the people that are running the ship are going to be able to get it straight. Whereas it sounds like, Ethan, through the hard times, you've liked enough of what you've seen. There's been some success. I mean, the Pirates, they kind of have this weird thing where it's, man, they just have some killer starts to the season or some killer, month and a halves. And then it's just like whammo, like a crash and burn. But it sounds like your confidence is back in the Pirates.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, a lot of it just attributes to the fact that when you look at the next, like, you know how they have those plans that you look at, and you just look at what is available to the Pirates in the next coming years. You obviously have Paul Skeens, who I would go ahead and tell most people he'll probably be up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. You have a guy in Jared Jones who has set historical records already as a starter. Then you look at Termar Johnson, you look at Xander Muth, you look at Thomas Harrington, Solometo, Bubba Chandler. I mean, you have guys that they're saying are better than Jared Jones, and I'm like, better than Jared Jones is pretty good. So you're looking at that, but then I think the biggest thing is too, is yeah, you extended Mitch Keller, you extended Brian Reynolds, you extended Ke'Bryan Hayes, but you look at the annual price tag every year, and it's about 8 to 10, $15 million. These are not contracts that are hindering your entire team.
Not
much
Chris
like
Bryant.
Chris Bryant, yeah, much like the Chris Bryant one. And I think that that's something that I feel bad for every small spending team. I don't like using the term small market anymore.
I'm with you right there, man. I hate to keep jumping over you, but the Rockies have no business calling Denver a small market. You got teams that are winning championships and a team that could dominate a massive amount of geological location of the United States. The small market thing, when they lean on that, drives me nuts.
Yeah. But I also can see why some of these teams like the Pirates, like, you know, even Baltimore, even, who's a very successful team right now, don't want to go into free agency and sign these guys to these mega deals, because we've seen the bad happen, especially for Baltimore. A lot of people forget about Chris Davis and the amount of money they gave him. You look at the Angels and Anthony Rendon. You look at the Rockies and Chris Bryant. You look at the Tigers and Javi Baez. I would argue that there's more like examples of bad contracts for these teams that try to spend money than there are good ones. So if you can build a team through the draft, through development, which has been a major problem for the Pirates and why they've been stuck in the position they've been stuck in for so long, and it's something that I hope eventually takes a different direction, then yeah, that's the way to do it. It's the Rays model. Develop your players, trade who you need to trade, keep going. That's what the Pirates are trying to do, and I think that they have the horses to eventually get it done.
See, and at least you got to, and that's got to feel good. The thing that the Rockies fans unfortunately have to go back on is it's a team that is turning their back on the modern game. A small analytics team. When analytics people come in, they leave quickly. The warning signs from within the front office part of the Rockies are huge. Let's end the show here with, of course, Rockies fans, no matter what. I love our guy Connor Joe. So I got to get my Connor Joe update, and then of course we'll just do the classic series look aheads and what we got to know here heading into it. But before we do that, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. PrizePicks is your number one fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. So say you're tuning in, Rockies, Pirates, you are watching and you say, all right, Ke'Bryan Hayes, more than 2 hits. And then you got Cal Quantrill, more than 2 strikeouts. You can just pick more or less on player stats and watch the winnings roll in. And you can get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the postseason, both with basketball. You can even go in and do some stuff with hockey. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports. And it doesn't get bigger than this part of the sports calendar, folks. There is everything in full swing, and there are big sports moments every single night. So don't miss out on the fun and go and check out PrizePicks using the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a $100 first deposit match using code LOCKEDONMLB when you download the PrizePicks app today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We're also brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. All right, we are calling time here. We're stepping out of the box, and I know what you're saying. Step in there, step up to the plate, start talking more ball. You already talked about Monopoly Go, but there's so much I got to tell you about this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. including unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces, the best part of Monopoly, to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multiplayers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. And it's going to be game on between the Rockies and the Pirates here this weekend. You can catch all the action on Sirius XM or the Sirius XM app. And hey, if you need more Locked On sports coverage, Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel is for you. You can go check it out there. Ethan, give me the Connor Joe update. We got to know. You said it was a great acquisition, a guy that I think is the definition of a plus clubhouse guy, a smile that lights up the world. What's the latest on our guy?
Well, right now, Rockies fans, you and Pirates fans, of course, would love to hear that Connor Joe is actually the average leader right now on the Pittsburgh Pirates at a 283. He's a guy that I've wanted to start at first base for quite a bit. He is the bar none leader on the team in OPS right now at an 832, 92 at-bats on the year, 3 home runs, 14 RBIs. I actually got to see him homer in person, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before that. And I agree, great clubhouse guy, tons of versatility. You can see him play the outfield at the corner outfield spots. You can see him play first base. He's been quite the pinch hitter this year as well. His splits offer very good numbers. I mean, in his last 15 games, 250 average, 308 on base, 438 slugging, 2 homers, 4 RBIs. Doesn't sound all that great, but when you compare it to the rest of the Pirates offense right now, it's pretty good. And I mean, at home right now, he's been very good at PNC Park, 320 average, the OPS up there at a 913 and a 924 OPS in night games. Find that also interesting too. So I almost want to start calling him Nighttime Joe. I know they have a late night Lamont Wade, but I don't know if late night Connor Joe really has the same feel. Had a very good April. May has started a little slow, but again, we're only a game into May right now, so we'll see. Does very good against lefties, obviously still serviceable against righties. So the Connor Joe experience has been fun. Obviously, I would say this. It's nice having it, but when he's your best hitter, I don't think that's all that great.
Yep.
When he's your best hitter right now, I don't think that's exactly something that you want to like run to the pressers and like celebrate about. But he's been a very serviceable guy. I just hope we get to see a lot more of him at first base than we have, and a lot more of him in the corner outfield than we have.
Yeah, and we've been there. When Connor Joe's your best player, it's a problem. But it's also great because Connor Joe is one of those people that you watch and you just enjoy watching in baseball. Ethan, we're going to wrap up here. I think the Pirates take this series 2-1. I think the Rockies will squeak one out. I think Cal Quantrill is due to get some offense behind him. Until the Rockies prove it to me, and that's where I'm at. It's prove it mode. I got the Pirates. I just think, sweeps are tough. Hopefully back-to-back sweeps don't happen. The Rockies certainly made it, easy for the Marlins in some ways, but I don't always count on the sweeps. So I got Pirates taking this one. I got this being a get-right series for them, exactly the type of team they're hoping to come through PNC, exactly what they're looking for. So I think the Rockies maybe steal one, but I got the Pirates in this one.
And I mean, I want to agree. I would assume that the Pirates would win this series. I do think that the best chance for the Rockies probably to win this series, or at least squeak out that game you're talking about, would be on Sunday against Bailey Falter with Feltner on the mound. That might be a game I'm actually at in person as well. Because the 2 days before that, you're looking at Perez, who has a below 3 ERA right now. Quantrill been very good. For the most part, in terms of what you would expect, especially over the last 3 starts. Austin Gomber versus Jared Jones, advantage Jared Jones, I think. Jared Jones has just been electric. It's hard to disagree with that at all. So I think their best chance would be Sunday. I would like a sweep here, just because that would get them very back on track, but I would obviously take a series win, considering we haven't seen one now for almost a month.
Yeah, and for the Pirates, I think you got to have it, and for the Rockies, you kind of got to have it too, but we'll see if the Rockies continue history of being the team that continues to trail consistently in games. Ethan, where can they go to make sure they stay up to date with all things you and all things your Pirates coverage?
Well, if you want to watch me lose my mind watching the Los Angeles Clippers play basketball, you can find me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. If you want to find my Pirates content, it's at Locked On Pirates. All of my other sports content, obviously, on my channel as well. If you want to read anything I write, SteelCityPirates.com. I will actually have a fun series preview of this series tomorrow morning for all of you. So if you guys want to dabble into that, it's going to be at SteelCityPirates.com. Have a full rundown of who's hot, who's not, what to expect in the series, pitching matchups, expectations, the whole 9 yards. So it'll be very fun.
Gotta love it. Nothing few better out there than Ethan when it comes to your Pirates content, so you got to check it out. For you Pirates fans, I'm Paul Holden, host of the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can find us Locked On Rockies on YouTube, LO Rockies on Twitter. Talk mostly about video game stuff on my main Twitter. So if you want to come and learn about Mario Baseball, that's where you can come and hang out with us there. But folks, that's going to do for both of us here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies and Locked On Pirates. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Podcast Network.